Hello, good morning, good afternoon. Pete and Gerard here for episode 1 of Gadgets with Pete. So, Pete, we had so much fun the other time when we spoke about...
Great. Thanks for the warm response.
Yeah, there's less exciting things, but I thought this is a great platform for us to provide some technical feedback about things that are quite interesting.
Yeah, absolutely. We do a lot of work here on a lot of elements of the system, so we thought we'd kick off with episode 1 and journey through the Spectre stack, see where we end up. But today, going to start with some fun with batteries.
Yeah, so batteries, lots of people have questions about batteries. So first, we always started with lead-acid batteries. What's good about a lead-acid battery?
All right, let's bring one over first of all. So we'll start with the good. Good old lead-acid battery. These things are simple, relatively inexpensive, available all around the world, been used for years, proven. And, they run a lot of industries, from fire panels to access control, starter motors on generators and bikes and all manner of things. So, good, solid, reliable unit. They're very recyclable, which is pretty cool. And most folks in the industry know that, because many a slab of beer, many a Christmas party has been sponsored by catching all of these, collecting all these up, taking them to battery recyclers and getting some money back. And, a lot of even Australian recycling is available on these. So, despite their old legacy credentials, quite environmentally conscious when you consider that they can be fully recycled.
All right. Well, if they're so perfect, then what's the downside? Why are we switching? What's the downside of lead acid?
Well, these guys are pretty heavy. So, this is a 50 amp hour unit. It's about the limit you'd want for just general day-to-day handling when you are working with these things all the time. 100 amp hour unit is, pushing that health and safety limit a bit. Next is the amp rating is a little bit hopeful. That this is called a 50 amp hour unit, but you will never get 50 amp hours out of this. If you ran it completely flat, which you don't want to do, we'll talk about that next, you'd get about 30 to 40, maybe 45 in the right, 45 amp hours in the right conditions for this. But if you do that, the very next time you do that, it'll be less. So if you drain these right down and they go completely flat, particularly at this time of year in the southern hemisphere when it's getting all gloomy, the next time you run it down will even be less. So a 50 out of the box, let's be hopeful and call it a 45. If you took 45 amps out of that once, the next time you do it, you might only get 40, and it just keeps degrading from there. So pretty good for that first year. Maybe that first winter, she may not survive through the summer, let alone make it through to the next winter or through the winter.
Okay, so the deep cycle of death, not very good for lead-acid batteries. So, okay, well then the obvious answer is lithium ferrophosphate. What's so good about a lithium battery then?
All right, let's talk lithium. I'll handle this with my very small arms. This is a 20 amp hour, so it's not quite the same, but these are our lithium iron, IRON, that's the FE, lithium iron phosphate, or LiFePO4. So this is the current main powerhouse of all of the Spectre systems. These are nice and safe, despite what you might have heard about lithium batteries. You've got a few different types here. There's among many, many different types of battery chemistries. This is the safest one. The videos you see of pouches exploding and that's the typical pouch cells used in your drones and RC hobbies. Those things can generate a lot of power. That's what we call LiPo, lithium polymer. Very energy dense, but also quite dangerous. The next safest one is the 18650, the big oversized AA looking cell. They're very safe, used in all your laptops, many of the Tesla, but by far the safer, lots of cycle life is the LiFePO4, which is now appearing in some of the Teslas. The Model Y, I think, now ships with the LiFePO4, so very safe. And next up, if this says 20 amp hours, this will give you a full 20 amp hours, tested from the factory. Most reputable vendors, maybe not your cheap AliExpress fake ones. If it says 20, these will generally give 20, and we test them. We work with our vendors and test them. So, it's a real 20 amp, and you can keep doing that. And if you take care of them over a very, very long lifespan of 5,000 cycles, so, that's well over potentially 10 years at one cycle a day, these will last a very good long time, and quite light, about half the weight of the equivalent lead acid battery. Lots of cycles, like I mentioned, and I'll give you a quick little look. This is a slightly different style of battery. They're also quite smart, which is something of a downside, which we'll talk about next, but this is an example of a pack, what they call a 416P. So there's 4 sets of 16 batteries in series to give us the equivalent of a 12-volt battery. These are quite smart with what we call a BMS, battery management system there, which then leads into sort of the next thing we'll talk about. But, you know, this guide, the lead acid being quite simple, agricultural, not much protection. It'll give you as much current as it can, hundreds of amps if it's got the capacity. This BMS gives you a bunch of protection for short circuit, keeping all these delicate little cells in balance and things like that. So, yeah, a bit going on.
Well, so if lithium is safe and effective, what's the downside of lithium?
Right, so they are a bit of a princess. They do need those cells, that chemistry that they use. You want the 4 series cells to be well balanced, so that BMS keeps things in balance. They have a very particular way they like to be charged and then maintained. So there's a bit of protection there that they require. But there's also, of course, the cost. You know, these things used to be 3, 4, 5 times more expensive than the equivalent lead acid. Luckily, a lot of price drops in the market in the last 6 months. So we're seeing these are now only about twice the price of the equivalent lead acid, which, as we spoke about before, is not exactly equivalent, because a 20 amp hour here is probably about the same as a 25 or a 30 amp hour lead acid. Next.
All right, well then, so it sounds like lithium is a pretty good decision for some applications, noting that it is twice as expensive though. So, you know, what's Spectre's journey here? You know, why have, secrets out, we've moved to lithium, but why? Tell us a bit about how we ended up here, noting that this is more expensive.
Right, so arguably we would operate the largest network of solar-powered cameras in the world. Love to see who might eclipse that. So we have a very vested interest in making sure we're not having to over-service once a year, twice a year, swapping batteries, replacing batteries. Yeah. This guy in one service visit can pay for itself. And so if you were having to replace that battery every year, by year 2, you're just in the money. These make so much sense from a cost and maintenance point of view. You know, so we designed for that. Our target minimum design life for the entire system is around 5 years, because we want that life and property protection solution to operate largely maintenance-free, in a perfect world completely maintenance-free, and in the most remote areas, that to help save that life in a place that's 5-10 hours from a major metropolitan area. We want to be able to rest easy knowing that when someone's in a life-threatening situation, property's under threat, that they can hit a button on a voice over IP intercom unit, or get an alert coming back. And this thing is going to perform. So, we did a lot of, it wasn't just a simple, well, let's just whack a big lithium battery in there. We built a simulation for all the major cities across Australia and New Zealand currently, and we'll continue to grow that. So we could look at our system loads, look at 30 years of weather data for those major cities, and size appropriately to hit our minimum target 99% uptime for each of those locations. So we can size that based on real weather data, real math. And then the really nice thing about doing this is rolling this out in conjunction with our completely updated fleet of new next generation hardware through simplifications of our systems.
Like that, I can't even point at it. Like that.
Yeah. So with the simplifications we made, improvements in the production efficiency, improvements in wiring harness efficiency, we found every efficiency from cost and labour that we could, and we're essentially able to deliver the lithium upgrade for no net impact on customer costs, which is really, really exciting. So that's just a win all around. It's great for us at Spectre, great for our customers, and pretty exciting to be able to do that without it having to be just a premium option for those really top shelf applications that everybody from the most basic Spectre system right the way through gets the best.
Democratising solar power and lithium battery access, that's what we're about. So Pete, thank you for explaining. A lot of questions are hopefully answered around batteries and why lithium and why not lead acid. Any closing thoughts on batteries for solar powered cameras to...
Yeah, absolutely. I think the main thing is that with that 30 years of simulation, the benefits of lithium and all of this, that we've and the history of Spectre, we've learned a heck of a lot. That anyone can be a champ, show great system run times during summer, but we're a couple of weeks away from the winter solstice here in the Southern Hemisphere, and we know that our systems will run, and that as you drive around and see other systems out there, you've got to ask that question of, like, is that just a scarecrow? That's, anyone's a champ in summer. Can you get through the winter solstice and those gloomy days, where the gloomy weather really sets in? We've looked at the data. We know generally what historically will happen in different cities, and can we make that system keep running?
Yeah. All right. Well, awesome. Thanks, Pete. Lovely first session of Gadgets with Pete. We've got more to come. If you've got anything in particular you're looking for, drop us a note, and we'll talk about that too. But thanks for listening, and thank you and good night.